But today, our main topic of conversation, or should I say our first topic of conversation, is in fact the original Final Fantasy, so Final Fantasy 1. So we've talked about it before. We know, it's a very old game, 1987, Nintendo Entertainment System, Hail Mary for Square. It was there like, this is it. If this doesn't work, we're cooked. And it worked because here we are today. We've both been able to play through the game, different experiences. I know you played more heavily on the Pixel Remaster. I started playing the game on the original Nintendo version of it, and it was really hard. Like, not hard difficulty wise, but it was just very like, there was a lot of bugs. There's a lot of like
Yeah.
there's a lot of like, I guess some of the code wasn't translated properly, so there's just like a lot of issues with the game. Um but I did get far enough to a point where I appreciated it, but then I kind of found out that there were other releases of the game, and there was a PSP version, which that's the version that I started and completed all the way through. And man, let me tell you, for it being a very old game. I mean, granted, PSP is newer than the Nintendo, and it did have like a art overhaul, and there was some quality of life additions, but um for it being a 40-year-old game, I gotta tell you, man, I really loved it. Like, I've never played like any of the really old Final Fantasies until I played this first one. So seeing like, the four-person party and like their roots and everything, I was really impressed. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed the game. I really loved, obviously, the combat system. I really loved the world, the story. I thought the story was really ahead of its time for it being its first rendition was back in 1987. But I felt like it worked, and I see now like why Square had all the success that they did, which is great because they built off of that after every iteration. But I also, in playing Final Fantasy the original and understanding where we're at now with the modern Final Fantasy, I can see exactly where like the fork in the road is. And it's so funny because everyone talks about that golden age of Final Fantasy being 6 through 10, and that's exactly where that shift happened. Like, right after 10 is where, because I haven't played Final Fantasy 12 like at all. I've heard good things, but I know that that was the first like real departure that they took from like that turn-based system. So I just kind of want to talk about like your thoughts about Final Fantasy 1, just kind of review it and just kind of see like the impressions that it's had on us. Like you, I don't like to give numerical ratings to games. But definitely, I could definitely see it. Definitely ranks up there as far as JRPGs are concerned, and it is the granddaddy of the entire franchise. So, just give me some of your thoughts as opposed to what your experiences was the game.
Yeah, for sure. So I think if listen, I think if you are a retro gamer or if you are just a historian of video games and kind of where things came from, I think that this is a must play for you. Um
Hmm.
Personally, I think that if you, because I'm not a big retro gamer. I can appreciate retro games. So I'm not huge. I don't really go back in time for games, right? So playing the Pixel remastered was the best way for me to play it, to kind of push my way through. But I will tell you, like, for me, I am a historian. Like, I appreciate what's come before, and so to see the innovation in the visual storytelling of Final Fantasy number one, and knowing like what games used to be like, and how, I mean, we talked about this on the last episode. Like Square needs to revolutionize gaming again. They need to push the industry forward, and you saw where they started with crossing the bridge. And obviously this is spoilers for a 40-year-old game, but
Hmm.
crossing that bridge at the very beginning of the game after the scene with Garland and everything, and then all of a sudden your title screen comes up and
Hmm.
it's this very cinematic opening to video games. Dude, that started everything. Like the history of video gaming was changed forever in our experiences and what we want. And you see that playing out not only in just in Final Fantasy, but like Expedition 33, for example, and things like that. Like they started changing this from a let's go through the castle, save the princess, oh you're done, congratulations, to like, no, these are true stories. And I think the party system, Final Fantasy 16, I shared with you that the thing that I felt lacked was the lack of a party system. Like you didn't have a party in that group, that's what felt made it feel not Final Fantasy to me. So being able to see where that started from with your 4-man squad and what you started with, the one thing I don't care for, which I mean, obviously this was the norm for so many years, and I'm glad it's changed now, is that like you could change your character's name. Like and
Hmm.
you could put your own name in there and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And I did that here just because I was like, why not? But the idea behind it was for the hero to be nameless, for that it was there was no main character. It was your party, it was your group. Like
Hmm.
you were one of four who saved the world, and that was just unique, and then topple that on top of like the battle system and how revolutionary that was for a side panel battle system versus like a point of view type battle system that they had at the time with a lot of JRPG games. So there's a lot to love, but the one thing I really want to highlight about Final Fantasy 1 is the story itself. um
Hmm.
Simplistic in nature, but so complex in execution.
Yeah.
First of all, I can't. There's no way if in 1987, that's when I was born. So let's imagine it came out earlier, and I was or later, and I was 10, 11, 12 years old playing this game for the first time. I would not have had the patience to go through and figure all that shit out that you have
Yep.
to in the game. But with all that being said, um, the twist of the game, of thinking that you've saved the princess and realizing no, you still have, you know 30 more hours of gameplay left, going through defeating Garland, only to realize that at the very end you got to time travel and defeat him again, and all the different layers of complexity that the story told. Again, although simplistic in nature from our eyes now and what we get with video games, but so complex in its execution. And it just, I mean, 40 years later, I'm sitting there enthralled in this story, just because I was like, man, like what is going to happen next, and to me, that kind of multiversal time travel kind of weirdness of it, I like that was it for me. I
Hmm.
I, I loved it, and I think the story is very underappreciated in the
Hmm.
world of Final Fantasy. So those kind of my overall thoughts, man. What about you? What was your thoughts going through the your first gameplay of it?
I definitely agree, like what you're talking about, like as far as the story being ahead of its time. I think it's a really good template. Like I think the original idea, like we have to preface everything and understand that yeah, we played it now in 2025 and 2026, but this game came out in 1987. So at that time it was probably like, what, you want to do time travel in a fantasy game with
Yeah,
knights and wizards and stuff? Like those two elements didn't really like they didn't really coexist, because like time travel is more sci-fi, and then like dragons and wizards and warlocks is more of like that type of speed, but they wanted to take both of them and combine them, which is even more, it plays up even more of like the Hail Mary aspect of it. Like they were just kind of throwing everything together and like, hey, listen, let's do this. um I definitely appreciate like the intro, like the defeating Garland and getting the princess, and then the game starts. Like I think that's really cool. We've talked about like The Last of Us, and we've talked about like even Final Fantasy 16. It has like that intro, more cinematic, like prologue, and then here's the actual game. I do appreciate games that do that. For me, like the mechanics were great, the battle system was great. But if I were to like remove myself from the time, right? So we have a lot of access to a lot of information in 2026, right? We have everything is online. You can Google literally anything. You can ask ChatGPT literally anything, and everything is just spit out at you, right? Even the way modern games are made, everything is very like tutorial friendly and like, oh, go here, or here's a mini map, and or go to your next destination. I really, not only did I enjoy like just, here's the game, figure it out. Like I really like games like that they kind of test your, I guess, gamerness, if you want to call it.
yeah,
Just here you go, figure it out. And then just with my general like RPG knowledge of trying to piece everything together and like talk to every single NPC and try to remember that this guy said, "Oh, you have to visit this dude in this far off village to get this." Like just little bits of information. I appreciate that now, but I can understand like back in the day, what are you talking about? Like I had to talk to this one-off NPC like to figure out that I had to go to this village to this seance to get a canoe. Dude, it took me
Yeah.
so long to find the canoe, and once I found it, I was like, there's no way because I was in that town already. So I did end up using like a guide and like kind of reading through like, oh, go here. And I was like, but I was already there. So I do appreciate that like old school aspect of like, here's a game, figure it out. But if you really need help, like you could buy a guide. I kind of miss that. I kind of miss that old interaction with games where you bought the game and then you had the strategy guide to kind of like help you go
Dude, I
through
know,
it.
like a paper copy of that strategy guide
Yeah.
where you're sitting there. I totally agree with you, man.
Yeah, like I missed that because I remember like I had the strategy guide for Final Fantasy X. Like I
Yeah.
bought the game, I had the game, I played the game, and then like my mom got me the strategy guide. She thought it was like a magazine, but it ended up like she thought it was because I used to get like the Game Informer magazines all the time.
Yeah.
So my mom thought that's what it was, and it ended up being the strategy guide for Final Fantasy X. And I had already played the game like to a certain point, but so I started reading the guide to like catch up to where I was in the game, and I missed so much. And I was just like, well, I got to go back and restart it and get all this stuff that I missed. So I missed that like discovering things and finding things. Like I understand why they make games simpler. I mean, the audience is a lot larger now, and your target demographic is a more casual gaming audience, and they don't want to turn people off. Which is why, again, side note, which is why like Expedition 33 success with the casual gamer is crazy to me because that game does not like really like kind of walk you like it just kind of here you go. But anyway, I digress. But I do miss that like oh, here you got to figure this out, go here, go whatever. But the thing that I appreciate the most about Final Fantasy the original is they had this idea, they put it into practice, they stuck with it, and they delivered. The delivery was great. The sense of accomplishment when you beat the game is there. It's not just like, oh yeah, I beat the game. Like you beat the game because it wasn't an easy game. Like it was, I don't want to say super difficult, but it was challenging. It wasn't like, yeah, I was hitting quad 9 damage by the end of it. Like it wasn't like that. So I could see why it led to the phenomenal success that Square had up into not up until this point, but like, for many, many years. But I could also see like where they decided to shift their philosophy. And I could also see because they changed their direction, why they've had a lack of success in recent years. So I'm
Yeah.
sure we're both in agreement as to, get back to the roots. And if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I will say, man, with the playthrough of Final Fantasy One, a couple of things that I found extremely frustrating with the game. Number one was when you finally kind of went like into the air to that ship or wherever you were at, a castle, I guess, or whatever that you were flying in. And you went to that last room right before you kind of time traveled. And like you couldn't figure like I couldn't figure out which direction to go on the hallways because every time you would like it would rotate through and you would kind of come back to the start and I'm just like where am I going here, right? And even looking at like walkthroughs and stuff there was really nothing there. It was just like you just gotta go until you can't go anymore and I was like this is fucking
Hmm.
dumb. So I hated that part of it. But the other part of it that I didn't care for was um, I didn't like, and this is just a mechanic thing, and I understand it was just the limitation of the game, but I feel like they could have fixed it in the remastered or repixeled version. But when you finally get your airship, and you're looking for places to land, like
Oh
you
yeah.
could only land in certain particular spots, and I understood like okay, well they want you to land here, so you have to walk here and you go through battles. But man, there were some spots where you could land, but if you weren't right on the fucking dime
On
where
the
landing
grid,
there,
yeah.
it would you would go down and pop you right back up, and you're like, oh my god. So that I found like super frustrating. There was one time I knew where I had to go. I looked it up online and I couldn't get the fucking airship to land. And I almost, because I finished the game while I was on a cruise with my wife on vacation, and I almost threw my fucking Switch overboard. I was like, I was so frustrated with the damn thing. And so, but listen, those are just, I mean, it's a, it obviously is a, because of the time and when it was made and stuff. Like, I get all that, um, but yeah, man, just truly a remarkable video game. And I just, it hadn't been, for me anyways, it hadn't been till I played like The Last of Us to where I felt like that with a video game where like, even though I again, this was 40 years ago, but I just imagine myself at that time and how different this must have been and must have felt to the players. And when I was doing the documentary and I was interviewing Final Fantasy fans, the ones who talked about the first original Final Fantasy game, that's what they kept raving about, was like, man, this is so different than what we had at the time. And I just remember as a kid just sitting there for hours and hours and hours playing this game, and not being able to get enough of it. And of course, saving the game was back then was virtually impossible. And they were talking about how they would just leave their fucking Nintendos going all night so that they could get back in the
Mm-hmm.
morning and start playing again. And
Mm-hmm.
so just honestly, an absolute masterpiece. And yeah, I agree. They need to, Final Fantasy needs to get back to basics, and I think that this is a nice blueprint on kind of where to start with that.